Trump couldn't possibly be a Russian asset, could he? And let me just, imagine for a moment that you're working for the FBI and, you're charged with protecting the nation's security. And a guy starts running for president and hires another guy as his campaign manager. And the campaign manager is a fellow who has taken $66 million from Russian intelligence services via Putin-friendly oligarchs. He took that $66 million in part to help Russia install their own puppet government in Ukraine in 2010. He was paid $1 million a year to help the corrupt dictator of Zaire, Mobutu Sese Seko, solidify his relationship with Moscow. He forced his party, the Republican Party, to remove references in their platform to defending Ukrainian democracy. He gave Russian intelligence agents top secret insider information, campaign information, about voters in 6 swing states so they could run an ultimately successful micro-targeted Facebook campaign to help that candidate. He offered to run the campaign for free because he was being paid by Russia. And then he repeatedly lied to the FBI about all of this, including his connections to Putin and Russia, leading to his being charged with the crime of lying to the FBI, tried and convicted for the crime of lying to the FBI, and then imprisoned until the candidate that he was promoting pardoned him. And then imagine that candidate had visited Moscow with his Soviet citizen wife, whose father was a Soviet agent, and had been groomed all the way back to 1987 by Russian intelligence, then it was called the KGB, Soviet intelligence, to run for president. He came back home from that 1987 trip to Moscow, we're talking Donald Trump now, and spent $100,000 of his own money to buy full-page ads in 3 major U.S. newspapers, urging America to abandon and leave defenseless our allies in Europe and Asia. Then he went to New Hampshire a month later and did a campaign rally to see if he could run for president. U.S. intelligence officers reported that 1987 ad campaign and Trump's run for president in 1987 led to a champagne-laced celebration in Moscow among the intelligence officers, calling it one of their most successful infiltration and influence campaigns in decades. Now, imagine also that the candidate, again, you're the FBI agent and you're looking at this candidate and the guy that he hired to run his campaign. This candidate also had cut a secret deal with Moscow to build a hotel with his name on it in Moscow, a secret deal that was not really revealed. In fact, he signed it just a couple of months before the election, a secret deal that was never revealed until well after the election. Imagine he made extensive use of his opponent's emails that had been hacked by Russia, and then that hack was used to target 26 million Americans by Russian intelligence to get them, particularly in 6 strategic states, 6 swing states, to get them to, help him win the Electoral College vote. And it was successful. If you were the FBI, wouldn't you be interested in looking into who this guy was, what was going on? I mean, and then imagine that 29 years after that Moscow trip and 29 years after the FBI says, Russian intelligence is calling him an asset, that he becomes elected president. And one of the first things he does in his first 2 weeks in office is he invites in for a secret meeting in the Oval Office the Russian ambassador, Mr. Kislyak, and the Russian foreign minister, Mr. Lavrov, and gives them information on an Israeli spy, burns the spy that they had been very concerned about. Now, imagine this was nothing new for this president's party, that in 1968, the guy who was running for president from his party had committed treason with a foreign power, hostile foreign power, specifically Richard Nixon and North Vietnam, and that in 1980, he had committed treason with another hostile foreign power, Iran. And the congressional members of his own party would vote against compiling evidence of Russian war crimes. I mean, this is what's going on. So out of the, and also while he's president, this guy has 20 secret conversations on the telephone with Vladimir Putin and keeps no record of any of them None. All of this happens, and then the FBI says, you know, we ought to look into this, and so along comes Bill Barr and says, I'm going to hire John Durham, and he's going to find out, you know, what's the origin of this investigation. Well, is this rocket science? I mean, what do you need here? This is, there were 14 criminal referrals to the Justice Department around this issue. You know, when the Mueller report brought 37 indictments against 37 individuals. But according to John Durham, the FBI never should have looked into this. And increasingly, according to the American media, the FBI never should have looked into this. I mean, this is absolutely insane. And if you want to know what the bias of the American media is, this insane pro-Republican bias in the American media, just look at what happened. I mean, just look at the headlines right now. The New York Times, the Washington Post, whatever it may be, all these headlines are saying essentially, you know, well, the FBI shouldn't have done this investigation, or this was premature, or you know, things like that. I mean, this is crazy stuff. Yeah, and as a result of all this, now you've got the media saying that now we're just, you know, the FBI shouldn't have looked into this. It's something that shouldn't have happened. I don't get it. What am I missing here? Is this the media trying to provide cover for Donald Trump? I mean, Durham's investigation was wrong. It was nuts. It shouldn't have been. I don't know how to say it beyond that. It shouldn't have been, and yet here we have this. So anyhow, that, you know, my rant on that. I'm curious your thoughts on the Durham investigation as well.